Hello, class. We are going to be starting our ethical scenarios. So we're going to start out, and I'm going to do some ethical scenarios under each of the tenets of the Code of Professional Conduct. Since this is the first week that we'll be doing this, we're going to be discussing tenet number 1 scenarios, which is confidentiality. Okay, so um, we want to make sure that we understand each of the 7 tenets of the Code of Professional Conduct, and we want to make sure then we can apply that knowledge to different hypothetical situations. All right, so I'm going to read the situation, and then we'll talk about some ways to handle it from there. Now, at the very beginning, we're going to be talking more about right and wrong. Because we're just getting started, and it'll be really important that we can make decisions morally and also in regards to the Code of Professional Conduct on what would be a right answer and then what would be, of course, a wrong answer. Later on, as you get more and more experienced with the Code of Professional Conduct and just the process of interpreting, there may be some situations where it's not right or wrong, but it's right or another right. And so just keep that in the back of your mind that, later on, it's not going to be as easy as right or wrong answers, but maybe what is the most appropriate out of many right answers. And it's all going to relate to consequences. So if you have, a couple different right options, then we need to make sure that we're looking at consequences then of even those right decisions. Okay, but right now let's just look at right versus wrong. The first scenario is, before we start, on each of these scenarios, I'm going to give you a number. And it's really an arbitrary number, but it will be easy for you to then keep track of which situation that you're going to comment on. Each of these situations, I need you to do a little bit of an internal reflection. Okay. I'm going to be giving you some of my helpful hints and some of my perspectives, but then on each one of these, you will be giving an internal reflection on, okay, that was an easy answer. Of course, that makes sense. Or, oh, that would be difficult to make those decisions, but I would still be able to do it. Those types of things. So each one of these. So there's 3 scenarios today under confidentiality, and you'll need to write a little internal reflection, your perspective, your thoughts, a paragraph on each one of these. And we'll continue to do this for the next several weeks. Then once we're all done with them, you will type those up and you will send those to me. Okay, I don't have a specific date yet, but when I do, I will type it out and announce it in our announcements and also in other places in Blackboard. So you'll be able to know when the typed out internal reflection and your perspectives will be due. All right. Number 1 is going to be under scenario number 65. 65, number 65. A deaf woman at the church where you interpret has asked you to interpret for her during her delivery of her baby. Everyone in the congregation is aware you'll be interpreting for her, as the deaf woman has shared that information with all her friends. It's getting pretty close to the due date, and so when one Sunday the deaf woman doesn't come to church, everyone naturally assumes she's had her baby and comes up to you for confirmation. In reality, there have been some complications which you have interpreted, but you're not sure how much you should share. All right, so this is under, obviously, confidentiality. We want to make sure that our overarching theme with following the Code of Professional Conduct and being interpreters is to do no harm in the community to either our hearing consumers or our deaf consumers. All right, So in this situation, the information is not ours to tell. Okay. And we don't know how much information that this woman from the church wants her friends and other people from the church to know. So it's not ours to tell. All right. So when people come up to you and say, "Has she had her baby? What's going on?" You'll just say, as a part of my code of professional conduct as an interpreter, I am not allowed to say things related to my interpreting situations, and this is one of my jobs. Please contact, and then give the name, or her husband or her spouse, whoever it is, to get more information. Okay? I'm respecting, let's say her name's Sharon Smith. I'm respecting Sharon Smith's right, and respecting her right to confidentiality. So please contact her or her spouse to get all of the information. I'm sure you'll understand I'm being professional here. And I'm sure that she'll appreciate your curiosity, and then also your excitement, something like that. So, you don't want to be rude. You don't want to be off-putting to them, but just explain to them very nicely that as part of your code of professional conduct, you're not allowed to say anything about the jobs that you're interpreting for. And you want to make sure that the information is respectfully the deaf woman's to tell, not you as the interpreter. Be very, very nice, but don't tell them anything. All right. Next one we have is number 66. A vocational rehabilitation counselor contacts you to interpret for a deaf client going for a week of job training. He says that he would like you to report to him after the training to discuss how things progressed. Okay. Two things to consider here. One is that, being a part of a team, if you are being hired by vocational rehabilitation, that, you may want to set some boundaries, but you can say, I can let you know about how communication is going. If you're paying me, if you're hiring me to do this, I can let you know about that. But I really need you to um, meet with the deaf person and make sure that they are letting you know how the rest of it's going. Or you can contact the boss in this job training as well. So making sure that you're letting them know that letting the vocational rehabilitation counselor know that you are part of the team, and that you're wanting to make sure that you're being communicative, but your only area of expertise is communication. So that would be a good way to handle that. So that way, the boss of the job training and the deaf person that's going through the training can give their own perspectives on their specific responsibilities and how that's going. All right, and our last one, number 72. On a break from an interpreting assignment in a hospital, you run down to the cafeteria for lunch. You run into several deaf people who say they come there all the time because the food is great and reasonably priced. They ask whom you're there to interpret for today. Well, we can't tell them. Okay, that's against the code of professional conduct and confidentiality. But you always want to be nice. So you can say, well, I'm here interpreting a job, but, as you know, I have to respect everyone's right to privacy. And so I can't tell you who I'm interpreting for. But it is great to see you. It is great to see you today. And I hope that you have a wonderful lunch. You can even say, oh, what do you suggest I order since you're here all the time? Kind of turn the conversation to a different area. Always be kind, but just say that you can't say anything. All right. I had a situation one time where I was interpreting at a deaf event. And so there were a lot of deaf people there. And I was, walking in the hallways, going to the next little workshop. And a deaf person meets me in the hallway, and they have several different people around them. And they said, "You look familiar. How do I know you?" They said it in sign language. And well, I knew that I interpreted for them when they were in trouble with the law enforcement. Okay. And obviously, they didn't remember that. Well, I am not going to out them in, in front of their friends at a deaf event, at a happy event. And so I said to them, "You do look familiar. Hmm, I'm not quite sure." Well, anyways, I'm so happy to see you, and you take care and have a great time today. Okay? So that was confidentiality as well, because the person didn't remember where they knew me from. And I was not going to say, "Oh, it was when you were in jail." Okay. So sometimes you tell little white lies like that, or not really even little white lies, but you want to protect them sometimes from themselves because they didn't remember and maybe they didn't want their friends to know that they had gotten in trouble with the law. Now, if someone comes up to you and says, um, they come up to you and say, and their friends are with them, and they say, "Remember last year when you interpreted for me when I was in jail? Do you remember that?" Or when we were downtown at the courthouse. If they bring it up, then I would say, "Yes, yes, I do." But I'm not going to say more about it. Yeah, and you had to pay a fine and you got, 10 days in jail. I'm not going to say any more, but I'm not going to say, "No, I never interpreted for you." If they out themselves, I'm not going to give more information, but I will acknowledge it. "Yes, I do remember. I do." Well, it's good to see you. I hope you're doing well. There was a situation where there was a person that I saw at the deaf club, and he had his wife with them, and he brings his wife over and says, "Hey," whatever her name was, "this was my interpreter all week at work." And I just said, "Hi, it's so nice to meet you." And that's all I said. I'm not gonna say, "Yeah, and did you tell your wife that you got in trouble with your boss because you arrived late?" I'm not gonna say those types of things, but I'm not gonna also say, "No, I've never seen you before. Who are you?" If they want to tell their wives or their friends that you interpreted for them, of course, acknowledge it. "Yes, yes, it's good to meet you. Nice to meet you." But then don't say anything else other than just being kind. All right. So that's talking about confidentiality. So make sure that you write down that you had number 65. I'm going to say it again, 65. A deaf woman at the church where you interpret has asked you to interpret for her during her delivery. Okay. You can always rewind this back and listen to the actual specifics on it. Okay. And then you're going to give a little bit of an internal reflection on that. What would be difficult for you? What wouldn't be? Other ideas you have. That's number 65. Number 66. A vocational rehabilitation counselor contacts you to interpret for a deaf client going for a week of job training. He says would like you to report to him after the trainings to discuss how things progressed, being able to still be a part of the team, but also make sure that you're letting the deaf person and the trainer to be able to 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 say their information and give their perspective versus you talking for everyone. Okay. And then the last one, number 72, about being in the hospital and running into a bunch of deaf people and they asked who you're interpreting for. All right. Okay. So that's related to always confidential, tenant number one. And make sure that you write an internal reflection on 65, 66, and 72. Hold on to those. Don't turn those in yet. And I will announce in a few weeks when they will be due. If you want to go ahead and start typing up your internal reflections so you have them ready to go and just keep adding to the document each time that we have an ethical scenario, that might be a good way to keep up with it. All right. Marco Polo me if you have any specific questions. Thank you and have a great day.